Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hello and welcome to An Unconventional Life podcast. I'm Dr. Russell Strickland, your host and also founder and CEO of Dissertation Done. Today we have with us Miss Jackie Lapin. This is going to be a wonderful, helpful episode for all of you authors out there, because what Jackie does is she helps leaders, authors, coaches, and speakers and entrepreneurs to connect with their next followers from around the globe. She does this by helping you get booked on stages, both live and virtual, TEDx, radio shows, podcasts, virtual summits, and virtual networking as well. So this is a wonderful way for those experts out there, those coaches, consultants, and counselors that we work with so much in Expand Your Authority, to really go out there and make your mark in the world. Welcome, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am delighted to be here, Russell. Thank you for the invitation.
You're so welcome.
Love supporting people who are making a difference in the world.
Well, I appreciate that. And all of our audience, I will tell you, that's one of the things that inspires me, is they really are making a difference in the world. I'd like to let folks know that today's episode is being brought to you by Dissertation Done. So if you're one of our doctoral students who's either facing your dissertation coming up soon or kind of stuck in the middle of it, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. And we'll see if you might be a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program. But if you are in that expert space, and that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and you'd like to get your book out there, because there is no better thing to do when you're up on stage than tell people that you are a published author. We'll take you from a blank page to a published author in less time than you thought possible with our Expand Your Authority program. And you can find out about that at dissertationdone.com/book. So check us out there. Again, Jackie, welcome. And tell me, how did you get started doing this? This is a wonderful thing that you're helping entrepreneurs and experts connect to their future audiences.
Well, I started out by the last 12 years, we've been doing radio podcast tours for authors, where we introduce them to 9,000 radio shows and podcasts at the very same time, with a minimum 30 guaranteed interviews. And we've done that for really great luminaries in the personal growth and spirituality and wellness space. Anybody whose work improves one's life, one's business, to the planet. And in the course of that, some of them would say to us, well, can you book us for speaking engagements? And we just said, we don't want to do that, but we know where they are. Why don't we just tell you where they are? And so that's how SpeakerTunity was born. And SpeakerTunity is a speaker and leader resource company where we provide direct contacts that gives leaders opportunities to book themselves without having to do any of the research. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, let's start with this. And then, my goodness, it was like, let's add this one, and let's add this one, and let's add this one, because we saw a need. We saw the fact that people were struggling and they wanted more radio shows and podcasts, and they wanted more virtual summits. So we just stepped in and said, okay, let's expand this brand and do more than just speaking live and virtual speaking events. And that's how we evolved.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, SpeakerTunity, there's so many opportunities out there. Right? the numbers you provided, I mean, I knew there were a lot of opportunities, but those are staggering.
Well, there are actually 9,000 now that since the pandemic, there are now 9,000 speaking gigs in America and Canada in any given day. There used to be 6,500, but it went to 9,000 because so many events went virtual, and just found that there was an opportunity that they could take advantage of without any limitations of geography.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is something that, the pandemic has certainly changed things. I'm honestly surprised to see the numbers went up by that much, but I know a lot of people did pivot, and they are starting to do more virtual events. I see that in my own space around kind of friends that I know, folks in my own mastermind, some things that I've done. So I guess it makes sense. A lot of people are doing that. So yes. Tell folks then, I think you mentioned before, the place to start is to talk about, was it the radio appearances or the stage is the best?
Let's talk about stage, because today what's happened is so many of the meetings, venues, and associations that were in-room situations have gone virtual. So it gives you an opportunity to take advantage of, let's say that you're an expert in a particular subject and you have an association that has national chapters. Well, at one point, if you wanted to keep your costs down, you could just go to your local meeting. Now you can actually go to any one of their chapters anywhere in the country and be a speaker, as long as you have the credentials and qualify. And in some cases, you have to be a member, but not always. And so what this has done is it enabled you to take advantage of all kinds of things and things that you might not have been willing to travel to before because, there was costs involved. So maybe you pitch something that's a new organization, a little off the beaten track. There's no liability in doing that right now. And you just open up more possibilities. So, and yes, some of those meetings will come back. Some of them will never come back. I know a ton of organizations have said, we love this. We're growing because we have gone virtual. So we're not going back to live in room. So, but when some of those meetings do return, people are going to flock to them because they're so excited at the possibilities.
I was wondering about that because I think that they might find that right now they're doing a wonderful job with it, but and maybe it's going to be a pendulum swinging back and forth, and we might end up in this area where there's a lot more virtual. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that really want those in-person meetings as soon as possible. I know our mastermind right now, we are planning on doing our meeting in June live, and everybody's got their fingers crossed it's going to work out because it's been like a year since these folks got together. We used to get together about 3 times a year, and now it's just virtual. And that's not to totally discount virtual. We can get a lot done there, but actually seeing people and going and breaking bread over a table at night and things like that.
There's a lot to be said for a hug.
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think so. So the possibilities are out there. And one of the things we did is we've created a couple of resources that are going to be really valuable to people. One, if you do want to focus on your region, at SpeakerTunity, we have something called SpeakerTunity Cities, where we give you regional speaker lead directory with up to 2,000 leads just in your market alone. And we'll have 72 markets when we're all wrapped up. We have 60 by about June, all over US and Canada. And they're subdivided into 4 sections. Business, which is subdivided into 55 industries, ethnicities, and gender. Service groups, which is everything from Rotaries to Seroptimus to Kin Clubs in Canada, to all the places you touch the consumer, moms groups, seniors, parenting, health and wellness support groups, military, LGBT, other special interest groups, bookstores, libraries, and hospitals. And then the last category is spiritual. Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living, faith-based groups. All that comes in one directory. 75% of the directory is the business directory, however. And it really gives you a direct ability to saturate your market. And it especially works for somebody who wants some in every one of those categories, or a variety in like the business category.
Those numbers are huge. And when I hear that, it brings to mind, there was a movie many years ago where some defense lawyers had just taken on a new case. It was against the government. And so there's a discovery process, and you have to bring in all the evidence. The prosecution has to bring in all the evidence they have. And they brought it in by the truckload.
Yeah.
And these lawyers were like, they were like 2 lawyers or something. They're like, what are we going to do with this? And that's what comes to mind when you talk about those numbers. It's like, what am I going to do with that? How do people use that directory?
And that's why it's divided into various different sections. So let's say you just want real estate people or healthcare professionals or lawyers or construction people or hospitality. All of that is broken down. So you can find your peeps, so to speak. And then, then you'll know if you want to do your civic organizations, your service organizations, you can pick and choose which are the ones that are closest to you. You don't have to do everything in the region. You're going to find the ones that are right for you. But we've made it in such a way that it's not all thrown into one big mess. It's very well organized. Now, the other thing that we've got coming that is more to what you're speaking to is coming in late May. SpeakerTunity is introducing SpeakerTunity Speaker Specialties. And what that is that you can buy your directory for your niche. Let's say you just want women's meetings across North America. You'll be able to buy that list alone. Or entrepreneurs, or whatever the category is that you want. And you'll be able to get it either all of North America, or to save costs, you can do it in one mega region, either East, West, South, Canada, or Midwest. And so that's not on our site yet, but if people are interested, they should go to the bottom of the page. And there is a form there. Just tell us that you're interested in being notified when that product is available. But all of this is designed so that you can find exactly what you want easily, whether it's locally or whether it's nationally.
That sounds awesome. Now, do you have a launch date for that yet?
The third week of May.
Third week of May. Okay. So we'll probably, folks will probably be able to listen to this by late April or early May. And then by the third week of May, they can just head over to SpeakerTunity.com and check it out. That sounds awesome. All right. So now we've got the list. We think the list is fairly concentrated or focused on what we're interested in. What does someone do with that list now to actually get on stage?
So the next step is to prepare the proposal letter and what you're going to send with it. The proposal letter shouldn't be more than about 6 to 7 paragraphs. And it should speak to what you're going to present that is going to change the life, the business, the health of that audience. So it needs to speak to the problem, the pain point that they're suffering with. And when you can identify that in your proposal letter and then identify the solution that you have, that's what you're proposing. Your credentials are secondary to presenting your solution. And so all of that, and you don't want to pack that pitch letter with credentials, because that's what's going to go in your speaker one sheet. And that's the next thing I'm going to talk to you about. Now, the speaker one sheet is a 2-page document that really gives a lot more information about who you are. And this is what you're going to attach with that letter. And it should have a bio and a headline that speaks again to the problem that you solve. And then in that bio will be more of your credentials. You want to have a couple of testimonials, preferably from people who've booked you in the past. If not, then you can put in either people who've heard you or your clients, but you try to work yourself up to the point when you can actually substitute in the ones of people who've booked you. Then you want to have great graphics, a good headshot or stage shot of yourself. And then on the back, you want to identify 3 presentations, because if you only have one presentation, if you have one arrow in your quiver, it had better be a bullseye. But if you have 3 different options, that's going to give people opportunity to say, that one's right for my audience, or that, and you can do it in different ways, different skill levels, high skill level, low skill level. You can do it in 3 different topics. You can do it the same topic, but rewritten for two or three different kinds of audiences. You can do it in such a way that one is a keynote, one is a workshop, and one is a lunch and learn. So give people options. And so you'll want that on the back side. And by the way, that's one of the services that SpeakerTunity does now, is we will design your speaker one sheet or your podcast introductory sheet. You pick the template, you pick the colors, you submit the information we request in a form. We're very specific about what to submit, and you can get it back in days. So you want to attach that. And the last thing that you want to attach, if you have it, is, or included in the letter, is some video of you presenting. Now, in the world pre-pandemic, you had stage video, and that's the optimum kinds of video that you can have. But you don't want to give them a 20-minute long version of what you presented on stage. You just need 3 to 5 really good, powerful minutes. That's it. And it doesn't need to be a sizzle reel either, with music and voiceover and all that other kinds of stuff. They just want to know how good a presenter you are. And if you can give them 3 to 5 minutes showing that you're dynamic, that you engage with the audience, that you know how to, really present well, that's all they need. So you want to put that on YouTube, include that little link right there in the pitch. So that's basically what you're sending, the cover letter by email, along with the speaker one sheet and your video.
Okay, so is this something that you do, that you use a rifle and you target very specific stages that you want and go after them? Or do you use a shotgun? Are you sending these things out to many, many, many people and stages that would be on your list?
Well, I would start with just being a rifle, just to and don't start high on your food chain. Start local, so that you can
slow down for that one, because that's true for anything that you do. When you're starting out, don't go after your dream whatever first. Practice some. Some people talk, we'll go practice with friends or family. That doesn't really count. It might help, but you want to get out there in a live situation so that you're not practicing, but you're actually doing the real thing. You're getting questions from the audience. You're getting, if it was a sales presentation, you're actually dealing with a client and you're kind of understanding them and reading with them and interacting with them. You want to do that with the smaller fish first so that you don't waste the opportunity with the big fish.
Exactly. And you want to, the nice thing about starting locally, even virtually, is that locals like to book locals. Yeah. So, start in, and so it gives you two things. One, to see if your pitch is working, and two, to get comfortable in your stage presentation. And when you know that it's effective and it's achieving what you wanted to do. Now, when you're speaking from stage, you're doing one of a couple things. You're either just simply inspiring people. Next, you're going to make them a paid offer of a program. That's, technically called selling from stage. I like to call it enrolling from stage or inviting from stage. And the third one is you make a free offer that will encourage people to get into your opt-in list or have a consultation with you, and then follow up and build that relationship with them, because some stages are not going to let you do a sales pitch. So you need to be basically to do all of those things. If you're a motivational speaker, that's one thing, but and that's when you get paid to get on stage. But frankly, those are harder to get, and you really have to have established yourself in the industry to get those kinds of bookings. You're better off, if you're doing this for a living, being able to make sure that you can enroll from the stage and make a really irresistible, compelling free offer. And by the way, if you are looking for a list of really incredibly irresistible free offers over and above an ebook or a free consultation, I have an ebook that's called 44 Ways to Seduce Your Next Client from Stage, Podcasts, Radio Shows, Virtual Summits, and Virtual Networking. And if you go there and get it, which is speakertunity.com/seduce, then you will be able to, it'll really open up your eyes to the all different kinds of ways that you can induce people into your opt-in list.
That's great. That's one of the things that we tell folks to do when they're writing their book, is that you don't make any money selling a book unless you're like, James Patterson or Grisham or somebody like that. It just is not going to happen. What you make money from is helping people in a more intimate and impactful way after they've read your book. Get them to know, like, and trust you. Get them to see you as a bit of a celebrity. Get them to want to be in your circle of influence. Get them to want to spend time around you. And when you do that, then you're on your way to building a relationship. And what you have to do is capture, while they are in that state of wanting to be around you, you need to capture their name and email address so that you can have conversations with them. So being able to tell them, give them an excuse for giving you their name and email address is excellent. And I think that 44 ways is a great thing for people to look over, because I know people all the time I talk to them, like, what am I going to do for my lead magnet? What am I, which is the thing, the gift that you give to people call it an ethical bribe sometimes. It's not free because they're paying with their name and email address, but you're going to use that responsibly and they're going to enjoy hearing from you. So what do you do to start that ball rolling? And 44 ways sounds like a great way of brainstorming that process. All right. So what does the process go like? You send in your information, someone reaches out to you, they get in touch with you. How does the process go from there?
Most of the time, on rare occasions, they will respond back. The most of the time, you're going to have to do a little bit of chasing. Okay. My rule of thumb is 3. The rule of 3. You either call them twice and email them once, or email them twice and call them once. And The next thing you do is you go to LinkedIn or Facebook Messenger. If you have not heard from them after those points of contact, forget it, move on. But that's the best way to reach out and see. But you also want to track what you're doing. So keep a record of who you're reaching out to, when you're doing it, what the response has been, so that you know who to go back to, who not to go back to, et cetera. And some people are going to say to you, hey, I don't have any bookings now, but I will in 3 months, call me back then. And so you want to make sure that you record all of that and stay on top of it. So that's really the process.
If someone's just kind of non-responsive, and you sort of alluded to the answer there, but if someone's non-responsive, when would you advise that they actually, you reach out to them again? If they're non-responsive, you just write them off entirely, or do you circle back in 3 months or 6 months or something like that?
Circle back when you've got another topic. It might just be that the topic isn't right for them.
Essentially for them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you've gone through, we talked about how to get your speaking gig. How does this change if we wanted to do something else that wasn't the stage, if we wanted to do radio, a podcast, or virtual summit?
Let me make one point, by the way. Conferences are another ballgame entirely. Okay. And the thing about conferences is the majority of them have calls for speakers, and you have to fill out a form. Okay. And there is much less latitude in what you're submitting. You're basically submitting what they're asking for. So just be aware that that is something that, and as of right now, we don't have a conference outlet, and we're hoping to add something like that in the future. So, so that was that. So on to other things like podcasts and radio shows. And keep in mind that podcasts today are video casts about half the time. People are now doing their podcasts in such a way that they're also putting it on YouTube, or they're doing it Facebook Live, and and they're stripping the audio for the podcast, but they're also doing a video version of it. So don't assume that you're showing up and it's going to be brought audio and you're showing up in your pajamas. Assume that you're going to show up dressed. So when you're going to propose yourself for those kinds of vehicles, there are two different vehicles to do that. One is a pitch letter, which is a little bit like the proposal letter, but it's more in depth. You can go as long as a page and a half. Okay. And the first part of that pitch letter really speaks to the problem you solve, or your own dramatic story and how that led to the problem that you solve. Something that's really catchy in that first paragraph that gets people excited. It might be something timely. You're keying on a holiday. Or a trend that's going on in society, or something that's in the news. You need that, make that first paragraph really impactful. Then the body of the pitch talks about your credentials, why and when you say I'm the author of, that's a big credential. And then the last part of it is expanding on what you're going to present. What is the audience going to hear? And a lot of times we give a short description and then we do bullet point, and the audience will listen, will hear, the audience will discover, he will or she will speak to these 6 points. And then the call to action, please book me, etc. So all of that goes into a pitch letter that really summarizes what it is that the audience is going to hear. The second option is simpler, and sometimes couple the two of them together, and that's called a podcast introductory sheet. And that's, again, something else that we do at SpeakerTunity, where it's a one sheet, not a two like Speaker Sheet. It's a one sheet, and it basically has a short bio and then 4 or 5 topics that you like to speak on, and then a couple of testimonials. Slick and it's beautiful, and podcasters that are in a hurry, they just take a quick look, hey, this would be good, and they'll extend an invitation. So those two tools are really helpful to have if you're going to pitch yourself for those resources. And again, you talked about, well, where do you book yourself? We've got 2 different products that we are designed to make this easier for leaders who want to get on podcasts and radio shows and videocasts. One is SpeakerTunity Radio Insider, that gives you 40 different life-enhancing radio and podcast shows that are looking for guest presenters. that are looking for guests. And then the other one is SpeakerTunity Radio Insider for business. So if you're looking to get on B2B radio shows and your audience is business people, then that product will be really good for you as a great resource. Now, that's if you want to get on the established, ongoing, evergreen kinds of shows. But there is another kind of vehicle that has been around a while, but it got a big boost over the last year when everybody was going online as opposed to being in a room to introduce their resources. And it's called the Virtual Summit. And if you don't know what this is where one leader gets a whole bunch of other leaders together to talk on a related topic. Everybody has something different, but it's somehow feeds into the same topic. And everybody who is a guest presenter in that organization, in that summit, is sending out to their audience to get people to this. So the benefit to being a guest speaker, guest presenter on one of these is that you're going to be exposed to people you've never seen before. And if you actually have a good and irresistible free offer, like we were talking about before, a lead magnet, you're going to be attracting people from everywhere. And it is a fabulous list growing opportunity. But the benefit is you might also sell some books, or you might get people interested in having a further conversation and to work with you. So you really get to promote everything in your funnel if you're doing it right. But the most important factor is at least to capture those emails. And so one of the things, so people love this if you're at the beginning of your journey and you need to grow your list. And so one of the things that we created is SpeakerTunity Summits, which gives you virtual summits that are looking for guest presenters. Most of the time, people learn about these summits when they show up on their desks and they say, oh, I would have been perfect for this. Why didn't I know about it? So we solved that problem. We give you on the very first day of the month a list of summits that are looking for people. And we also give you giveaways. Now, if you don't know much about the giveaway world, one of the ways that people are building their opt-in list again is by doing these collaborative giveaways. It's like a summit without an interview, where you give a free gift and 40 other people give a free gift and everybody promotes, and you get people piling into your free gift offer. And so, and some summits have minimum list size. So if you don't have an email list of 2,000 or above, you're not going to get invited. So it behooves you to build your list using giveaways so that you can get invited to more summits. And so that's why we put them both in the same product, SpeakerTunity Summits. Makes it easy for you to find them.
Yeah, that's all amazing gold there. We're going to be doing a virtual summit in April. National Dissertation Day is coming up, for those of you who don't know, on April 26th, and we're going to be doing a virtual summit for that. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But to have people who are looking to get into those summits and have a resource for them, that is great. Certainly our new authors being able to talk about their new book is an amazing opportunity, and just the sort of thing, because most of, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the summits that I'm aware of, the interviews are pretty short. Usually you're 10, 15, 20 minutes.
No, most of them are longer than that. They're half an hour to an hour on the ones that we're used to. Now that may be different in your side of the business, but okay.
So how many folks would be featured in a summit if they're going that long? And is this a summit over several days?
Anywhere from 10 to 40. And yes, they do often spread over several days. It just depends on the host and what they're, yeah, exactly.
Right. It's your show. You get to do what you want to do. Exactly. Okay. So podcast virtual summits, these are great. What about, something a little bit more traditional? Do you have anything to tell folks about, radio shows or television? Any of that? Any advice for those vehicles?
Well, the radio shows are going to be shorter.
Yeah.
And the challenge with radio today is that a lot of the local radios have gone to national programming. Mm-hmm. So there's less local programming to get on, but that doesn't mean that you can't. You look for morning drive shows. You can also get on health and wellness shows, or, local public affairs shows that are produced locally. Getting on the national shows is a little bit harder, and you really need to have established yourself. You need to have a hot topic. You need to have a more traditionally published book sometimes, like with National Public Radio. It's not to say you can't, but there's a higher barrier to getting on the national shows. But the locals take advantage of them as much as you can. Look for what you can locally. And the other thing and television. So the only thing I would tell you about TV is one, if you're writing your pitch letter, it's very similar to your radio pitch letter, but the difference is if there is a visual component to what you're doing, you want to mention that in the pitch letter. I've got video, I'm going to demonstrate, I can show. That will enhance the ability to get on those shows. And of course, your local morning show is your prime time capability. Also, you're talking about the news. But these days, given the last couple of years, it has got to be something compelling, because the news is dominated by obviously things like, either the political situation or the healthcare situation. The opportunities for a lot of the featurey kinds of things is less and less than it's been in several years. So it's got to be really topical.
But one of the things that I've heard is a good way to get on the news is first of all, you have to have a bit of a relationship with people that are doing the booking. But then there's this technique called newsjacking that if you know there's something that's in the news and it relates to what you do, then tell them you can talk about that.
Right.
Hey, I'm a dissertation coach. I help people get their doctoral degrees. And there was this guy talking about Dr. Jill Biden the other day. Can I add into that? Can I speak to that part of the conversation? And you might be several people on, or you might be the one person that's featured for a little while. But no, there's no such thing as bad exposure. So just be ready for it and take advantage when that's there.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by being topical.
Mm-hmm.
Really keying into what's going on in the news. That's exactly right, Russell.
So are you able to be topical and just present to someone, hey, I can help you out with this kind of story. I can help you create a story, a small feature about this sort of thing? Or do you need to have a relationship of some sort with the folks there? Should they know you? Is there a way to cultivate and nurture that?
Well, you can, there's always a first time to get to know somebody. But they don't take lunches, for example. So you're going to have to just, put in that first phone call and start to get them familiar with you. But send that email first and then do the follow-up phone call. And with the newsroom, they are busier than hell. What they're really looking for is a media alert or a pitch letter that basically speaks to what it is that they, is going to be topical for them. And it comes in by email, and then you do a follow-up phone call. But a lot of times they're going to be so busy that they're not going to really pay much attention to you. The best time to get them, the morning shows, you want to get them either before they go on the air or after they come off the air. Don't call when they're on the air. And the newsrooms, you got to leave them the mornings to deal with, all their immediately news, getting everybody out the door. And some midday is a better, somewhere in the 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock range is a better time to get those guys.
Okay, that's good advice. So really the relationship is going to be built upon you reaching out to someone and saying, here's something in the news and here's something I can help you with right now. Because in print they talk about people having pages to fill every single day, and you got the same thing. You've got minutes to fill, I guess, on television every day.
Yep.
And somebody can tell you how to fill yours in the next couple of days. They're doing you a favor, essentially. The expert by coming onto your show and giving something topical. Great.
Did you want to talk about TEDx?
Yeah, I know that you mentioned that kind of in the context of stages, but TEDx in particular, what do people do a little different there? Because I know you've got a list of all those TEDx events, right?
Absolutely. We've got a directory of 450 TEDx events in the US and Canada, so that you don't have to wander around the TEDx site. And we've identified them by what's coming time-wise, what is, what's close to you. We've got them all sorted by states or province. And then also, which got gone virtual and which ones are still live. So it makes it really easy to find them. But once you get, you start hunting for them. Many of them have themes. And so you want to look and establish what is the theme, and is this a theme that you can tie in with? Some of them have the same theme annually, like this is a tech one, or this is, and some of them change themes every year, and new ones pop up every year. Yeah. So you want to, if you can, go look at what they've done in the past. It's going to give you a good idea of what that particular one likes to book. I will tell you that this is not an easy thing to pitch. First of all, every one of them has a different way to apply. Some of them have an email. Some of them go through a website for that particular one. Right. Some of them tell you to apply through the main TEDx big mega website. Yeah. If you know somebody, or you can get a hold of that person, that's the best way. We've tried, the names of the directors in every case, but not everybody has provided all of their emails. But if you can get a hold of them, and if you can try to talk to them, that's one thing, but sometimes they just have a methodology. Some of them want you to submit basically an audition, your 18-minute audition tape. Wow. So everybody is different in terms of what they're willing to do and what they're looking for. So you're going to, you have to feel your way with that one to see really, what are the right things in this particular case for this particular TEDx. But knowing that, and here is one tip I would give you: when these are open again physically, right, to come and watch, go to the local ones you want to get booked on. And while you're there, get a chance to introduce yourself to the organizer. You talk about relationships. That's the first and best way to start that door getting open.
Yeah, always being a customer and being there face to face. Those are two things that will ingratiate you really quickly to anybody. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, when you mentioned the theme, I'd like to just reinforce for people: get good at figuring out how to connect the dots between what you do and other things. I send out emails to our folks on a regular basis, and I'm just looking at some of them. And in the past week or so, it was near miss day because an asteroid came kind of close to the Earth like 30 years ago or something like that. And now it's near miss day every day. Well, we talked a little bit about that and connected it back to dissertations. We had Einstein's general theory of relativity being published, Act Happy Day. We tied in St. Patrick's Day. That's the easy one, right? But all of these things, you look at them, you think about them, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? You can tell a story to connect what you're doing to almost anything. So get good at telling stories and making those connections. And before you know it, this idea of telling the TEDx people, here's how I fit into your theme, won't be hard. It'll actually sound like you don't fit into their theme, but you are part of their theme. It doesn't sound like you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole if you get good at that.
Right.
So, yeah. How far ahead of time would you say that you should begin this process of kind of seducing the TEDx organizers?
Most of them are booking 6 months out.
Okay.
But you really need to get on it early on. That's really incredible.
Like 9, 10, 12 months out to get booked, or like when you say 6 months, is that when they're starting?
You give them time to get over the one they just did.
Sure.
So no sooner than 10, but they may not even be thinking about the next one quite yet. So, but between 6, 7, 8 months.
Okay. So it's not like at 6 months they're booked up and the schedule is the slate's already.
Some are. It depends on how big it is and how important it is from the standpoint of the TEDx hierarchy.
So if like a lot of our listeners here are new authors, if you have a new author who wants to go out there and get the word out about their book so that they can start building their list and they can start attracting people that they can help in a deeper, more impactful way, how would you advise them to start first? You've given them a lot of great information, lots of things they can do. What would you prioritize as the first thing a new author should try to do to really get the word out about their book?
Good question. You should figure out where you're going to feel comfortable, whether it's going to be on stages, virtual stages, or whether it's going to be on podcasts and radio shows. And podcasts and radio shows are a real good warm up for being on a stage. I did 100 interviews for my last book. And by the time I did that, I had nailed my stage presentation because I had done it so many times. And I had made the questions in such a way that the questions were simply the organizing of what my stage presentation would be. So, you're practiced, you're ready to go, and you're accomplished, and you're feeling good. And it's going to allow you to step on stage with more authority. So that's a really good way to get started. If you just want to get started virtually, well, there's one thing I should tell you. There's another thing that's going on that if you just really want to get the word out and you want to start attracting potential clients, virtual networking has become a real thing. And this is where people have established meetings for the whole, my primary purpose of, well, they might promote their own product, but to a large extent, it gets people together so they can introduce each other. And on those meetings, there's either a breakout meeting or you get to introduce yourself to the whole group. You can actually start collecting potential clients. And this is one of the things we've been doing very, very effectively. Show up at these meetings, tell people what you do. They say, oh, I need that. Let's have a further conversation. So we've done a virtual, it's called the SpeakerTunity Recurring Virtual Networking Update, where we are constantly updating it with new virtual meetings that we're learning about. But there's 200 of them in there, 40 that are just for women. So if you really want to target specific types of audiences, this is a way to get really started. And all you really need is your elevator pitch. That's what you're starting with. Yeah. And so you're not necessarily having to do a full platform presentation, but it's a really good way just to get out into the world. So that's one way. But now, if you just want to get started getting on the stages, we actually have something on SpeakerTunity. If it says, I want more speaking gigs, there's a little arrow there and it marries a couple of products together. So it makes it really easy. And we give you your regional speaker lead directory. So you got all these leads, the training program on the art of filling your speaking calendar, and your speaker one sheet. It's all in one little package. So everything you need to get started is right there in that one little package. And we've done something similar for podcasts and radio shows. And, it makes it really easy for you not having to figure out, all right, what do I need next? It gives you all of those kinds of things. So, I think that if you get to the site, you're going to see that it's pretty user friendly. And I get that there's so many opportunities there. Pick one path, start there, then you can go to the next one, whether you want to start with radio shows and podcasts, whether you want to start with virtual speaking. Just figure out where you want to, you're the most comfortable starting, and then you can always expand into the next one.
Yeah, that's good advice. And that idea of having a package together to help guide people through is amazing. You should always find someone that's been there before and follow what they do, get the blueprint. I mentioned this before on the podcast and I kind of flubbed the quote, but there's a quote I remember seeing on a bumper sticker, and it said, if you think education is expensive, try experience. If you want to go out there yourself and try to figure all this stuff out yourself, good luck. You might be able to do it. You might not, but if you do, you're going to pay a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there, and to be able to go and find someone who can just guide you through and say, this is the way you do it. Yeah.
Amazing. And that's why we created our 2 e-courses, the art of filling your speaking calendar, rocket your radio and podcast bookings. We figure that people don't have the time to try to figure this out on their own. So we've made it really simple for you to do that.
Well, that is awesome. So Jackie, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing all this wonderful insight. I know there are authors, prospective authors, aspiring authors, and new authors will really just eat this stuff up, because this is so valuable. You want to be able to get out there. You have the credentials. Our folks who've gone and earned their doctoral degree and written a book, you're set up beautifully in terms of credentials. Now you got to get out there in front of people so they know who you are. So amazing information. Tell folks again, what's the best way to reach out to you? Given them a lot of resources so far, but what's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can find everything at SpeakerTunity.com. And if you need to reach me, you can reach me at Jackie@SpeakerTunity.com.
All right. So we're going to put both of those points of contact in our show notes. So if you go to dissertationdone.com/blog, you're going to have the links, you're going to have access, I think, Jackie said that you have a book out that's available. We can link to that. We'll go and make sure that everything's in one place for you. So if you just want to go to the blog and find Jackie's episode there, wherever you're coming from in podcast or YouTube land, just go to the blog at dissertationdone.com/blog. Find Jackie's episode, and you'll be able to click on the links and make it real easy on yourself.
Well, Russell, and I have one special offer I want to make your community.
Oh, that's awesome.
If they want to try and experience our 3 subscription products, SpeakerTunity, Speaker Lead, SpeakerTunity Radio Insider, and SpeakerTunity Summits for free, we'd like to give them 1 month free in SpeakerTunity, those 3 subscription services. So they can go to SpeakerTunity.com/free-trials. And I'll say that again, SpeakerTunity.com/free-trials. So I'd like to extend that invitation.
So SpeakerTunity.com/free-trial.
Trials with an S.
With an S. Okay, awesome. Thank you again. That is great. That's a wonderful little bit of another resource for those who stuck through the end of the podcast. So always good to reward those people who stuck it out and then want to take action. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. It's been a delight to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to remind everybody that today's episode has been brought to you by Dissertation Done. If you're working on your dissertation, about to work on your dissertation, check us out at dissertationdone.com/done. We'll see if you might be a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program. Have a discussion, see where you are and whether we might be able to help you out. And if you are interested in becoming a published author, check us out there at dissertationdone.com/book. And we'll take you through so that you have your published author credential, which will help greatly with all the other things that Jackie's been talking about today. Again, Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here.
And to everyone else, have a great day and go out and live your unconventional life.
This has been An Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.